Good morning, everybody. Chag Sameach and almost Shabbat Shalom. It feels like this time of year, especially when the holidays are midweek, we're going from Chag, couple days, Shabbat, couple days, Chag, but it's amazing to be in this holiday season together. So this morning is actually a little bit of an interesting situation when it comes to a Parsha class. And that's because when Chag falls over Shabbat, not the holiday like the first 2 days or the last 2 days, but Chol HaMoed, when a holiday, Chag, is over Shabbat, we don't read the weekly Parsha. We don't read the regular weekly cycle of the Parshas that we're reading each week. We already read Hazinu. Next week, we'll read Breshit. After Simchat Torah, we'll read Genesis, the first Parsha of the Torah. But this week, during Sukkot, we're in this funny situation where we don't actually read from the regular cycle. Rather, what we do is we read a special Torah reading for Sukkot. We read from the book of Exodus that the people came out of Egypt. They lived in Sukkot. So we hear about Sukkot. And another piece of this is that because it's Shabbat, we read 7 aliyot and we have a maftir. If it wasn't Shabbat, on a holiday, you don't read 7 aliyot. On a holiday, you read five different sections. But because it's Shabbat and it's still Sukkot, we're going to read 7, but not the weekly Parsha. We read about Sukkot. So I figured, you know what? That's a perfect opportunity for us to learn about Sukkot because we're still in the holiday of Sukkot. So we get that beautiful opportunity to continue learning about this holiday. And what I've been thinking a lot about this holiday in particular is why is Sukkot at the time of year that it is? And you might be thinking, well, of course, why wouldn't Sukkot be at this time of year? Why wouldn't Sukkot be at the harvest time? Sukkot is a harvest holiday after all. Sukkot has many meanings. One of them is a harvest, that you bring all of your harvest items. It's a fall holiday. We decorate our sukkah sometimes with gourds and with pumpkins and with fall decorations. Why wouldn't it be in the fall time? It's such a fall holiday. Yes. And we get to thinking, but wait, why would it be at this time of year? Now, we could say because if we had Pesach, Sukkot, and Shavuot all smushed together, that would be too much. But then we think about this month of holidays, the Jewish people don't seem to mind so much, or maybe we mind, but the Torah doesn't seem to mind if we just have a ton of holidays all at once. So we continue to think, wait, why would Sukkot be this time of year? Now, yes, part of it has to do with agriculturally. In addition to it being the harvest, why do we build Sukkot? One of the more historical agricultural reasons for building a sukkah is that farmers during this time would set up Sukkot, would set up little huts on the farmlands. Why? Because if you're home and you want to get to your field as early as possible because you have a ton of harvest to collect, you don't want to be living 2 miles away in your house. You want to be in your little hut that's ready to go so that you sleep in your sukkah. You wake up right when the sun comes up and you can get to harvesting. You go to sleep right when it gets dark and the cycle begins again so that you have as much possibility of daylight to collect the harvest. So that's one of the more historical agricultural reasons for Sukkah. We're celebrating the harvest and we're doing like the farmers, even though most of us are not living on a farm. We're doing like the farmers. We're building a sukkah. Maybe you're sleeping in a sukkah or maybe one night, who knows? But that's like the farmers. On the other side, we have this story from the Torah, this idea that we want to be like the Israelites, right? We want to reenact the experience of our people that they had 3,000 years ago when they were living in Sukkot. After they left Egypt, they lived in Sukkot when they were wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. So we want to be like them. So in that case, that's where we ask, well, if we want to be like the Israelites who left Egypt and then dwelled in Sukkot, why wouldn't Sukkot be right after Pesach? After all, that would be a real reenactment. We would have Pesach where we reenact the Seder, where we go through the story of leaving Egypt, being free, crossing the sea. And then you would have Sukkot in the middle, right there. Then they lived in the Sukkot. And then we would get the Torah at Shavuot. But the rabbis think about this and they say, wait a second. Why would it be? Because in the Torah, in Leviticus, it says, I made the children of Israel live in Sukkot. So we reenact that. Another piece is not just that we want to reenact. Yes, that's an important part of Sukkot. But another part of Sukkot is living in the fragile. I'll say that again. Part of Sukkot is about living in a fragile, temporary, unprotected space. Because that is a good reminder of the instability of life, the fragility of human existence. Why do I say this? And how is this connected to when Sukkot falls? The rabbis say that if we were to dwell in Sukkot in the springtime, it would be simply enjoyable. That if we were in our Sukkot in the spring, we would want to be outside anyway. In the springtime, we would want to spend time on our porch. We would want to spend time in a shady little hut so that we could be outside, have our meals, drink our tea, spend time with family. We would like to do that anyway. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. It's perfect. And in that case, the rabbis say, actually, that in the springtime, everybody likes to build a sukkah. That I guess, in the Middle Ages, people would build a little bit of a shady shack during the springtime so that they could spend time outside in a little bit of shade. So then they say, wait a second, then people aren't going to truly experience Sukkot. If they're there just in their sukkah, enjoying themselves, then we're going to forget the reason we're in a sukkah. They say Sukkot needs to be in the fall. Because in the fall, that's when we feel the elements. The weather is temperamental. It's a little bit cold. Sometimes at night, you're putting on a jacket. If you live not in Los Angeles, then it could be really cold during Sukkot. Sukkot, yes, on the one hand, is Zman Simchatim, the time of joy. And wow, even more so, what a time to have Sukkot. When we learn about our hostages being freed, a deal being made. Wow, Zman Simchatim, a time of joy. And at the same time, Sukkot is supposed to be about understanding that we don't always have structure, that we might need to get out of our house, out of our comfort zone, that The rabbis say actually that the Yalkut Shimoni talks about how it's almost an exile from our house. We're exiled from our homes, from the comfort, from the luxury. We're exiled into this outdoor space that is not allowed to be permanent. The sukkah has to be temporary. It is not a kosher sukkah if it's too comfortable. If the walls are all real walls, if the roof is a real roof, then it's not a sukkah. It has to be somewhat temporary. It has to be filled with a certain level of discomfort, because that's life. That we're supposed to remember the elements. We're supposed to remember we are not the sole creators of this world. Sometimes when we're taken out of our home, when we're taken out of our luxuries, then we remember, wow, I am not all powerful. It's God who provides for it. And that is where also we see this synergy between it being a harvest holiday and a holiday where we're highlighting what it means to be dependent, to be a little bit reliant, or at least we're a little bit shown to the elements that we are a people who need to sometimes be reminded of that temporality, of that fragility, of the lack of luxury. And with that, while we're saying, okay, it's the harvest time, we need to be one with the earth and reliant on that which is provided by the earth and by God. And on the other hand, we're reminded of that by living in this temporary structure, which might be a little bit breezy, which might be a little cold, where we might sometimes feel a bit of a drizzle. Those go together. And on Sukkot, it is always a reminder for us as well, as we're exiled from our homes, that not everyone has a structure like ours. That for many in this world, temporary structure is all they have. That especially in Los Angeles, especially in the country we live in, there are so many who would long for a sukkah. For us, the sukkah is a place of discomfort. But there are many on this earth who wish they had a sukkah, that would be a home of luxury, a home of comfort, a home that makes them feel like they have a home. So we go back and forth between Zman Simchatinu, the time of joy, this ultimate feeling of, wow, Yom Kippur was focused, it was tiresome. Yom Kippur, we're fasting. And then we go to Zman Simchatinu, this joyous time where we're singing and we're dancing, we're shaking the lulav and the etrog. And also, that's not what the whole world is. That's not what all of human existence is. We have to remember that we are exiled when we leave our homes and go into the sukkah. We have to remember that the sukkah is fragile. We have to remember the sukkah is temporary. And that means remembering the source of what we're grateful for, remembering that which has been provided for us so that we can help others have what they need. Chag Sameach, Shabbat Shalom, and I hope that everybody has a joyful